Okay, let's take a look at one more that you can try. This one is called chickweed. This is another plant that comes from Europe and grows on lawns. It has opposite leaves. The leaves are in pairs. Long leaf stalks, there's another species without the long leaf stalks that's just as good. The leaves are shaped like spades. And there's a tiny white flower, which I don't have here, that looks like a carnation. Now, earlier somebody said the leaves of the burdock look a little like rhubarb. However, you don't identify which family a plant is in by its leaves. You need to look at the flowers and the seeds. So that legumes all have pea-like flowers, and they have pods that look like some form of pea pod. We learned that from Linnaeus. He was born, I think, 302 years ago. And mess of plants kept coming in from all over the world. In his day, travel finally became more possible than it was in the Middle Ages. And you couldn't just give a French name, an English name, an Italian name, and 5 regional names for the same plant. There was just too much. So he studied the plants, and instead of categorizing things according to whether they were useful to humans or harmful to humans, so like the word vermin includes rodents and insects, and those terms were not even formed back then. It was all vermin. He looked at the qualities of the plants themselves and figured the most stable things were the flowers and the seeds. The leaves of closely related plants could be very different depending on what habitat they're coping with, and dissimilar, unrelated plants that happen to grow in the same habitat and have the same needs will develop similar leaves, but you're not going to go from 4 petals on a flower to 5 petals. So everything with 4 petals in the shape of a cross, all the members of that family will have the same characteristics. The flowers may be a little larger or smaller, they may be blue or they may be white, and that's of course because of natural selection. They all have a common ancestor that had these characteristics. So with the burdock, if you see the flower and the seeds, it's very similar to the structure of an artichoke or a thistle, and the flower of chickweed, if you look at it under magnification, we don't have any here, it looks like a carnation, and it's actually related to a carnation. And this plant tastes like corn on the cob. We'll pass some out. You can eat the leaves or the stem. And this is also related, this is also important in the history of herbal medicine. Here we go. So just take a little piece and pass the rest down. The plant also is very tolerant to the cold. It thrives at this time of year. It's small. It stays close to the ground where it's warm, and you'll often find it along the walls of buildings, especially where there's sunlight. The bricks protect it from the cold a little bit, and they absorb the sunlight and re-radiate it. So in the middle of the winter, when everything is frozen, you look at the border between the bricks in your garden, you may find a row of chickweed growing only there. And with climate change and global warming, we're having milder winters, there's going to be a lot more of it. So this has more vitamins than a health food store. Back in the day, when people were convalescing from really serious infections, whether it's scarlet fever or typhoid or even the plague, if they survived these things, they would be weakened, and it would be very easy to get pneumonia or some other secondary infection while you're recovering and then die. And herbalists would give the convalescents some chickweed, or actually a lot of chickweed, and they'd notice it would rebuild their strength. No one knew what vitamins were, but it's because of the vitamins that were probably deficient in people's diets in the first place and became depleted by the illness that this plant replaced the vitamins and would give people renewed strength very, very quickly. It's a wonderful plant. People remove it as a weed from their garden. Any comments on the flavor of any of these? Yeah, it tastes a little bit like corn. It's, you put this in salads, you put it in sandwiches, and you can cook it. Very simple way of preparing this is wash it off, chop it to bite-sized pieces, saute a little bit of garlic in some olive oil until very lightly brown. Never let garlic get dark brown. It burns really easily. When it's just starting to turn brown, then throw in the chickweed, turn the heat to mix everything together, turn the heat to low, and cover the pan. The water that clings to the leaves of the chickweed after it's been washed is enough to steam the chickweed. So that water will turn to steam in the pan on low heat in about 5 minutes. When it's just wilted, it's done, and you'll have one of the most delicious vegetable side dishes. Oh, also, along with the chickweed, you add some tamari soy sauce. Tamari is the highest quality soy sauce they sell in health food stores, much better than the sugary stuff they sell in the supermarkets. So you add a few drops of the tamari soy sauce with the chickweed into the sauteed garlic and olive oil. Cover it, turn the heat on low. Steam will form in about 5 minutes. When the chickweed is just wilted, it is done, and you have a wonderful vegetable dish. You can do the same with lamb's quarters. Quite excellent.